Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about 3 of the main effects of the climate change. So the warming of the planet is causing the average global temperature to rise. It impacts humans, weather, and the future of our planet. Oh my gosh, I completely blanked on everything.
Okay,
I'm completely blank.
okay. Flip your slide.
There's so much more I need to say. Okay, anyway, so according to National Geographic, which actually cites the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as their resource, this affects our environment and natural resources and impacts our way of life in many ways. For example, increase in frequency, intensity, and duration of heat waves, which I'm sure we've all felt recently. This is very dangerous to people as it causes a lot of health-related issues. The changes in the patterns and amount of rainfall, also something we've seen recently with all these really crazy rainstorms and inches of rain. The changes in the rainfall pattern actually do affect water supply, water quality, and the production of hydroelectricity. And increases in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, which Superstorm Sandy last year. We've also had more hurricanes that have reached this area, causing a lot more impact. According to the EPA, rising global temperatures have an impact on weather events. Warmer oceans make for more extreme weather, including devastating storms. We see more hurricanes coming through. We've seen a lot more tornadoes forming. The warmer oceans help hurricanes form. They help them gain intensity, they gain strength, and they can be far more devastating. The increases in average temperatures are projected to make extreme heat events last longer, become more severe and more frequent. As we know, heat waves can be deadly, especially if people don't have proper air conditioning or hydration. I actually spoke to a nurse at St. Francis Medical Center in Trenton who said that over the last few years they've seen more people being admitted with heat-related injuries. So there are studies that have shown that over the next century we will see more and more 100+ degree days. They will be more frequent. So what is now considered an extreme event will become more normal. People all over the world are impacted both personally and economically by the changing climate. The climate greatly influences some of the most deadly and diseases that currently affect millions of people across the world. Small rises in temperature help to facilitate the breeding of mosquitoes and other disease-bearing insects. So you'll start seeing diseases like malaria and West Nile virus start to spread to areas where they previously were never there. This can cause a strain on public health services as they're trying to deal with these increasing people being sick. Smog is also another issue. It represents an immediate and chronic health threat to people living in built-up urban areas. China especially deals with a lot of issues with smog. Smog can affect any sort of respiratory issues that are pre-existing. It can also affect the immune system ability to fight off diseases. So that could be a very serious problem. There are studies that were done by Johns Hopkins and Columbia University that are citing an increase of 4.5% of smog-related death over the next 50 years or so. Floods, hurricanes, and wildfires cause billions of dollars in damage. Flooding, as we've seen, causes a lot of damage. A rise of 3 feet of ocean level could devastate the entire eastern seaboard. This would require moving hospitals, refineries, nuclear power plants, homes, you name it, they're going to need to be moved inland. Hurricanes, again, we're seeing a lot more intense hurricanes more frequently. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 is still on record as the costliest and deadliest hurricane in the history of the U.S., upwards of $125 billion in damage. Wildfires are also a major threat. The 2006 wildland wildfires out west reported the greatest acreage of damage in history. Annually, firefighting budgets are upwards of $1 billion. So it becomes very costly to deal with these issues. The continued warming of the planet is going to have an even greater impact on the future. The increasing global temperatures are melting the polar ice caps. This is happening with splicing. There are glaciers falling off, large chunks of ice coming off the glaciers, and it's creating problems with the temperatures in the ocean. In addition to that, the ice caps are freshwater. So as they melt, they desalinate the ocean. So as the ocean becomes less salty, it affects ocean currents, which then in turn will affect the weather, especially if the Gulf current is affected, that affects the weather here. So greatly reduced rainfall, more severe droughts, loss of soil fertility will affect food and water supplies. Those would cause them to diminish. As food and water supplies diminish, the prices will go up. You'll see more people suffering from malnutrition. People will be at a lack of food, dehydration, more illnesses, and eventually people will start dying from that. The other issue with reduced food and water supplies is countries that do have an adequate amount of these supplies may not be willing to share them, and they may not be willing to take in refugees from areas that no longer have these supplies. So it's also possible that future centuries could see increased friction between nations and ethnic groups as dwindling resources lead to migration and conflict. People moving from one area to another in search of resources, people are going to be fighting over these resources. So you could see more wars breaking out over those types of issues. So in conclusion, we are already seeing some of the effects of global warming and climate change. There are things we can do to prepare ourselves, strengthen water conservation program, upgrade stormwater systems, develop early warning systems for extreme heat events, preparing for stronger storms through better emergency preparations and response strategies. And just a quote from David Attenborough, if anyone watched any of the Planet Earth specials, he narrated the BBC version. There's no question that climate change is happening. The only arguable point is what part humans are playing.